To your right.
To my right, this way.
Right, I'm seeing his too much screen to his.
So
There you go, right there. There, you're all centered now.
Looks good.
Yeah, like that. I was trying to avoid having the door because people like looking, stare in the doorway.
No, it's all good.
It's perfect now. You can't see the doorway.
Yeah,
All right,
awesome.
Cool. Now we should kick John so we can't see him either.
That always happens.
You're growing a beard, John.
It's just a lazy beard.
It's funny. People always compliment me on my lazy beards, and when I really try to do it, no one cares.
Did you know I had like a crazy, like ridiculous wild man beard in Australia? Like I'd been on vacation for a few weeks.
You need to get Damien for you. Damien is
did.
Area I've seen him.
Yeah.
You did look a little crazy.
It was ridiculous. I came home and my wife wouldn't talk to me, like because she didn't recognize. She thought
that
I was
time when you stopped me in the street and you were like, "That's not a knife." John Galloway, you've completely changed.
So you've gone like an amazing Ned Kelly style beard from Australia. You're just like a quiet.
It's good.
Toned it down.
He was so mean to me in Australia. He's like, "Harden, take a teaspoon of cement and harden up." All right.
Luckily, he wasn't a native. There would have been swear words in there. You wouldn't be able to
trouble.
It's true though. It's very hard. It's very hard to get any communication done in Australia without swearing every 5 words.
Yeah.
It was a court case. The judge said it's such a part of the language that it's okay.
It's true. Even my 8-year-old was cussing like a sailor. It was really, really uncomfortable.
Instead, he got off a plane and he just started swearing.
All right. Cool. So, hey, friends. It's the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up. And Damien is not here because we can only have so many Australians per show. So Damien has been replaced with 2 much cooler people. We've got Crystal Chen and Justin Kotalik, our outgoing interns. Wave and say hello, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
You all have been here how many weeks now?
Too long.
12.
Okay, so he just said too long. Not a good way to get rehired.
But Justin here sits like directly behind Damien and I.
Oh, well, I can see why he wants to get out.
Room across the hallway, so maybe that's got something to do with the relative pain of being there.
He's ready to bail. Where do you all go to school?
New Jersey.
There's a college in New Jersey?
There is. I go to Princeton.
Holy crap. I love that you led with New Jersey, not with Princeton.
Then you hope they stop asking.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, New Jersey, cool.
Sorry, I shouldn't have gone to. It's like, oh, where'd you go? Massachusetts, little school there. Nothing, no big deal. Little technology shop there. What about you, Justin? Do you go there as well?
No, I go to University of Washington.
So do you feel really bad
No.
that you don't go to Princeton? No, I'm just kidding. I feel really bad because I went to Portland Community College, but I don't have a way to say that. That sounds cool, like you all do.
It's actually funny. One of the things that the interns get when they join here is that the guys go and buy them like guides to Seattle. Like they buy a book about where places you can go hiking and
right. Where Justin lives.
Yeah, that's right. Justin's like,
Yeah, I'm like, well, yeah. I mean,
It's like, this is all wrong.
He's rewriting the guide as part of his internship.
No, that hike was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. Well, welcome to the state that you live in, Justin, and welcome from New Jersey, Crystal. We appreciate you being here. While you're setting up, we're going to have John go over the community links. You're going to go ahead and share your screen, John.
I am. I'm clicking on the button. It's thinking about it, and
I want to dig more into intern psychology and understand
intern life.
If they regret this whole thing. Was coming to Microsoft a huge mistake, or was it awesome? I don't know.
Okay, check this out. I just saw this morning. Benjamin wrote about this. So this is middleware and crazy stuff with Roslyn to run PHP on .NET Core. So it's actually an ASP.NET app with middleware, and it's got compiled so it's running PHP stuff. That's awesome.
Now, hey, slow down here. This one here, this isn't crazy. This isn't a hack. This is actually a long, long time coming. I think they've been working on this for something like 10 years. This Peach Pie is the resurgence of a previous compiler that some work was done on.
Phalange.
Phalange, that they got excited about when they saw Roslyn. So this is very significantly and very possibly a PHP on .NET Core solution here.
It's
just like we
huge.
see that it is huge, so we should
Yeah.
definitely give them some respect for that. That's pretty slick.
So this is a post that just came out, but then they also have, if you click over to benchmarks, they have this thing where they compare some specific things that are a lot faster with compiled code. So they have PHP running on Azure and how much faster it can be for a simple test script, and then they have some specific things like method calls and statics that are a lot faster in a compiled language. So
yeah.
Neat stuff.
And even though I tease PHP, it's always room for another virtual machine in this space. There's the hip hop VM and cool stuff happening in PHP 7. The fact that they've got this running on .NET Core also shows excitement around the .NET Core ecosystem.
Absolutely. And you mentioned PHP 7, and there's some cases where a huge difference from PHP 5.6 to 7, like in these cases with statics, but there's still some places where, like moving to .NET Core, you can get some big wins. So neat stuff. Okay, so this is from Aranaj, and he's writing about Nancy FX on ASP.NET Core, so explaining how to get that set up and running.
Okay.
Got a few where some people have been pretty productive, and we took a week off, so I've got a few double shots from some folks. Here's Andrew Locke, first writing about setting up the hosting environment on ASP.NET Core. Several different ways to do this. So he talks about how you can set it using set and setx from command line, from PowerShell, from inside the editor for settings, and then also on OS 10. So lots of good stuff there. Another one from Andrew on using the JWT or JOT bearer authentication middleware in ASP.NET Core. Here is, I've got two from Bill Boga. So one is where he wrote just kind of a simple problem solution thing on middleware that's modifying a response body. And it wasn't working for him. He saw, he found a workaround, and he also said, like, hey, this is fixed on ASP.NET Core 1.1. So that's also cool. Okay, another thing, just to preface this, today is the last day of the ASP.NET Monsters Summer of Config contest, and so they were having these things where you could write your own config provider. So a neat one that just floated in at the last minute from Bill Boga, he did one, oh, actually this isn't the last minute, this is from the 20th, but he did a GPS configuration provider. And so this is a config provider pulling from GPS, and a neat thing he did here is he's actually got on the end of his post, as he walks close to and from his laptop, you can see it's filling up a progress bar. Based on configuration, it's reading from his GPS. So just neat stuff. I thought this was a neat little thing on there. 3 from Damian Bowden. So one is on implementing undo and redo in ASP.NET Core. Another one on ASP.NET Core with Entity Framework and MySQL.
Can you say more about that undo thing? That seems like a big deal.
So, I mean, it is. So he's writing about using different commands and
so this is like when you're doing something in a form with Angular and you're keeping a stack, an undo stack.
Exactly. And then you're using kind of commanding in order to go back and forward.
That is hardcore.
Yeah.
And then one more from him on logging with nlog and Elasticsearch. So tons of great stuff from Damien.
It is a resurgence of blogging. It is the golden age of .NET blogging, my friends.
It totally is. And, there've been some folks that kind of pop up and write some great posts and then kind of, they get busy or whatever and, no worries. But Damien has been consistently all through ASP.NET Core, like tons of great stuff. So amazing. This is from Nicholas, a friend down he's in Argentina, and so he's writing about JavaScript services and kind of digging into the stuff Steve Sanderson's been working on. So this is cool. So Mads just wrote today on Twitter about this core template pack, and these are kind of like a preview look at some different some core tooling on some file new project experiences. So kind of looking for some feedback there. So that's cool. Donovan Brown, he wrote one on stop wasting time on .NET Core builds. So
now this is significant though. I talked to Donovan about this because his frustration was that he was firing up build servers, hosted build agents, and that initial unpacking of stuff was taking time. And it's a cache it's a NuGet cache, right?
Absolutely.
But it's only useful if you're ever going to be there again. If you're going to tear the computer down and start from scratch again, then there's no value in it. So if you're only going to build once and then tear apart the computer, that's what he's talking about here.
So build server, Docker container, that kind of thing, where it's just build up, do something, and tear it down. Then this environment variable is you set that environment variable to true, and it won't build that cache for you.
Right.
Did you also talk about the NuGet XML doc environment variable?
That was so you mentioned that in Twitter, and I didn't dig into that one. That's the building the documentation. I didn't look at that actually.
It's the one that skips the making of the XML file,
Yeah.
right?
So all the NuGet packages, especially ours, have lots and lots of XML documentation, which you want and is super useful when you're on a dev machine where you want IntelliSense and help. But if you're on a build server where you're never going to use any of that stuff, you don't need it. It doesn't give you very much speed gain, only like a couple of seconds, I think 3 seconds or something, or 4 seconds in his case maybe. But it does save you potentially hundreds of megabytes worth of disk space.
What is that environment variable so I can Google with Bing to find that?
I don't remember, but I will.
That's extremely helpful.
So actually, that is something I started looking into the document.
Blog about it.
I started looking for the environment variables, and we don't really have a good list. Like I was actually digging through the source code on the CLI stuff, and there are some that I didn't find docs on anywhere. So I think that is something we can probably write up.
Not
better.
cool. Let's figure that out. Give me that. I will take that task and fix that.
Awesome.
Like someone needs to point me in the general direction of that stuff.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Next, Mohammed Rahan Sahid, he's been writing about this ASP.NET boilerplate, and so he dug into this stuff with Nginx for ASP.NET Core in depth. And part of the reason he did that, so he did all this stuff about here's how you set it up.
Oh my goodness.
And part of the reason he did that is because he's got, as part of his template, you can check off where you're going to host, what server stuff you want pre-configured. So he has kind of a best practice pre-configured thing for Nginx as part of ASP.NET.
Great. I've actually got a blog post that I'm going to pull the trigger on in an hour or so on Nginx. I'm going to link to his stuff because this is great. The work that's happening on the boilerplate is really, really significant. He's doing a lot of great best practices.
Exactly. The best practice stuff where it's like you can read a million blog posts, but you can probably just start with file new project, boilerplate, and you'll be pointed in a good direction. So, and he's done a lot of things as far as performance and security and protecting you from some vulnerabilities and things. So, tons of good stuff in there. Okay. So this is from Meher, and he pointed out something that David Fowler had tweeted about, and Damien had mentioned on the recent stand-up about work that's going on in 1.1 for better DI integration. I see Glenn shaking his head there, and so Meher went in and kind of talked about, okay, here's what's going on with it, and here's how things kind of will work and how things will kind of improve in setting up. Going forward. So he talks about several different DI containers and experimentation he's been doing with it. So I don't know, Glenn, do you want to mention any more on that?
No, I mean we should talk about it, I guess, in an upcoming stand-up, perhaps show some code, perhaps. That's it makes things look a lot kind of cleaner and nicer in your startup. It makes it it looks a lot better when you're adding a third-party DI container, as well as the under-the-covers stuff to kind of help people who own a container to integrate. It makes your app look a lot nicer too, and gives you a much cleaner way of adding a third-party DI, which is nice.
And off of this post, you can click through on this and the sample here that David shows with some code. Like it's like, whoa, that is really some clean code there. So that's nice. Okay, Scott Allen blogging about how he's been abstracting code from his startup. He wants to keep his configure services clean, so he's been moving some of that stuff into simple extension methods. So, Scott, great posts. A lot of the time he does these just really short, but super useful posts. So this is a great one, a nice pattern to use here. Yeah,
we actually did to go backwards and forwards on base classes for startup CS many times and patterns for people to use, but. Yeah, it's interesting how people want to factor out their applications. Or just interested to see more of that, how people are doing it.
So this is one I've translated. I use Google Translate in this case, and Dimitri's writing about Platformist CMS. So of course there are other CMSs available. An obvious one is Orchard, but this is really cool. This is an open source, pretty sophisticated one that he's been working on, and he's got a series of blog posts on this. Just a nice CMS, all based on ASP.NET Core. So, neat stuff. Another one from Hisham, pretty much one every week from him, but here's one on securing your ASP.NET Core application from image hot linking. So he talks about using some middleware and securing against a hot link. So, nice.
He's also pretty active on the in issues in Isham. I've associated that little icon with him.
Yeah, he does. I know he does a lot with localization, but he's kind of active across the board. So, here's one from Radu on injecting core dependencies from JSON files. So the idea here is maybe for testing, or you've got different things you want configured differently. He's actually pulling a list of dependencies to inject from a JSON file and injecting them at runtime. So kind of sophisticated, but an interesting idea here, and so he shows how to do that.
Feature you would get if you start using third party. When you start using like Ninjax of the world, they often have ways of doing this. Right?
Yeah. Okay, John Hilton. This is kind of an introductory look at basics of publishing an ASP.NET Core app. So he's actually done a series here, and his series is on .NET Core web app completely from command line. So he's doing everything command line only, which is an interesting approach. And so here he's talking about publishing. This is from Bipin Joshi, and he's talking about security using ASP.NET Core Identity in 10 steps. So he kind of walks through. It's very clear, tutorial style, explains everything about setting up identity.
That previous one where you said command line, was it like starting from empty, starting from like nothing, and then going all through?
You know, I believe so. Yeah, so he's doing .NET New.
Cool. So he'll hit all the problems that the templates solve for you and talk to people about them. So that'll probably be a cool series.
Yep. Okay, here's a few kind of related ones. Here's one from Norm. He's talking about ASP.NET Core support on Elastic Beanstalk. So this just happened. This is cool. And then we also had one recently from Chris Sells, and he's writing about Google Cloud support. So their first kind of big push was on just ASP.NET in general, ASP.NET, like the full .NET framework. But he does write kind of at the end about ASP.NET Core support. So nice to see that.
Make it a little bit bigger there. So you've got Kubernetes, you've got Google Container Engine. Basically, the point is you have the choice. You can put it anywhere you want to. You could do it on a Windows VM, on Amazon. Their SDKs now support ASP.NET Core, and you can do it inside of Docker. You can do it on anything, anywhere.
Yep, exactly. And he's as he's pointing out here, Google API client support for .NET Core and stuff. So
of course, it should be in Docker. Of course.
What's that?
Of course, it should be in Docker. Of course.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Cool. So
the .NET of the ASP.NET team for those of you.
as Daniel says, you live in a container.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you are now a containerized person. Here's a couple that are ASP.NET previous version. So this is, but worth pointing out. So this is Audit.NET. This has support for auditing in .NET apps. So the idea is you wrap something in you set an audit scope, and then it will audit changes. Who changed it, at what time, what the changes were, what fields and properties were changed. And some neat things here, he's got like support for MVC actions. So you can put decorators on your actions and controllers, and it will create audit logs. So definitely looking forward to seeing this in ASP.NET Core as well. And last one here, this is from Taisir Judah, and he's writing Taisir Judah, and he's got a series here on Azure AD B2C, and this is based on
B2C.
Yes, so this is kind of the customer-focused Azure AD implementation. And so he worked on a large application with this, and so he's got a 4-part series, and it digs into mobile, web API 2, and MVC as well. So, and then mobile on Xamarin and Windows 8 app and all kinds of stuff. And that is it, and I'm out of breath.
That may be the most impressive community roundup ever, John.
That was to give the interns time to set up the remote desktop.
Is that what that was? And also, I love that your camera looks like a potato right now. Are you getting it pretty bad, John Galloway picture there as well, Glenn?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do look like a potato, right?
You're not high def right now, friend.
In my camera's defense, I do look like a potato, I've been told.
That is true. That is true. Cool.
It does look like the web from the 90s, though, with all the pixelated pictures.
All right. Interns.
Yeah.
Who goes first? Who lost?
I lost, so I'm going first. So how do I demand?
All right. Justin, share your screen, and I'm going to switch forcibly over to Crystal, and because you're on her machine. Little green button in the corner.
All right, are we good to go?
Yep, I see Google.
Yeah, it's gonna do a little bit of that first, but.
You're just going to Google first?
Yeah, quick Google
Google
search.
for like.
Sorry, Bing. I'm gonna Google.
Yeah,
Bing.
that's okay. Don't worry.
All right, so my name is Justin again. I'm an intern on the ASP.NET Core team, and my task this summer was to implement a rewrite module as a middleware in ASP.NET Core.
A what module?
A rewrite middleware module.
Okay, like IIS rewrite.
Yes. So pretty open-ended. There was like, all right, do something. And so what I did naturally was I went to Google and I typed in how to rewrite URLs.
That's comforting that that's the first thing that you did.
Yeah, first thing I did. And so really what I was trying to do is get a sample of like what types of rewriting there is out there. So for example, if I look at, let's look at the first link. Scroll down. Eventually, all right. So yeah, this is using ModiWrite. So ModiWrite is.
Could you make those bigger, or Glenn help him?
It doesn't. Yeah.
There
Sorry.
you go. Thank you.
All right. Sorry. Whoa, it maybe made it too big, but. All right.
Never too big. There you go.
ModiWrite rules, and Apache ModiWrite are a very common way to do any URL rewriting. So I decided to use this in one part of my implementation. The other obvious one would be IS's URL rewrite module, and thirdly. In general, people like to use rewriting just as like a kind of a builder model where they say, all right, I want this URL to rewrite this URL based on some regex expression. So all three of those I managed to incorporate into my intern project and going from there. So oops, that is not what I want to start with. But here we go. So inside the configure, I have some options, and this is a rewrite list of rewrite options, and this has a bunch of extension methods on top of it. So right now, I don't. So Crystal uses Vim controls, and I don't know how to use Vim controls at all. Crystal, how do I?
What do you need help with?
I'm currently.
Can you unvimify
Here.
her thing?
Oh, okay, just click.
Here, there you go.
Okay, cool.
It should be good now.
All right, sweet. Is this zoomed in enough for you guys?
It's perfect.
All right, perfect. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to be adding a redirect rule, and this redirect rule is going to say any URL or any path that contains a trailing slash will be redirected to one without a trailing slash. So, for example, I have this capture right here as a regex capture, and it's going to be grabbing anything before the last slash, and then it's going to redirect it to something without a last slash or a trailing slash. So, if I build this right now.
So in this case, the $1 is
sorry.
whatever was captured in the group in the regular.
Sorry, I already have an instance running, so I actually can just pull up this right here. So if you can see right here, I'm going to add a n slash with just like hey or something like that, and it's going to remove that last trailing slash. So that's just an example of a quick redirect rule.
So under the covers, it did a 301 redirect or 302?
302 redirect.
Do you want to open the network?
Yeah.
Suddenly I'm getting echo on myself for some reason. Do you have...
You have it. Just refresh the page now.
Okay. Where did it show the...
Down the bottom, you've got hey 200 okay.
Oh, yeah.
Do it again.
Because it did redirect first, and then it did redirect.
Do it again with the slash.
Put slash back into your URL bar.
Oh.
So you just refreshed.
Yeah. The 302 first, and then 200. Sorry, forgot that it was already rewritten to the new URL. Alrighty. Let's continue from there. Now let's do some more complex rules. So if we go ahead and add a rule that is going to be grabbing, let's say I'm grabbing, I have a URL that looks like app/some number, okay? And I want to do a path to query thing where I take whatever path I have and I rewrite it to the query. So I'm going to rewrite the number I get here as part of the ID. So if we go ahead and compile this and run it. Oops, I totally forgot that I need to close this down every time. There's an echo with our voice, someone says.
I wonder how they got into the chat.
It seems like the echo's gone away.
Yeah, there was an echo, but it seems to be better now.
Okay, yeah. I'm pretty sure Crystal's computer is muted, so I just want to make sure.
I blame John, don't worry. Oh,
Okay,
there it is again, see?
Alright. Okay, I'm going to same time. So I'm going to add a URL now that's going to be app/some number. So I'll say app/10, and it's going to be rewritten to app ID is equal to 10. And this is a rewrite, so this URL stays the same because it wasn't a redirect. And on the server side, we're going to be seeing this as the app with the part of the path and query string.
So later on in my pipeline, when it got to MVC, it would be the query string URL, right?
Yep.
Whereas
Yep.
well,
it depends on what order you actually add in with your app, but if you add this first, then MVC, yes, it would be that way. Yeah. All right, sweet.
Maybe you could turn off the notifications there for a second.
Yeah, Chris, I blame you.
Well, maybe someone should have gotten it working on his machine.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hello.
Oh, which getter? Just drop that. All right, that should get rid of them.
There was some advanced Chrome usage there.
Yeah, no. All right, let's do a rule that is based on
Kind of the thing you were saying there, the add redirect versus the add rewrite. I guess I suppose we'll make sure that lands is that you adding a redirect and you got a 302 on the client, whereas with a rewrite, the user just sees the URL all the time, and then everything up below me in my middleware pipeline sees the new URL.
Yeah.
Right?
So, where, John, or either Justin, anyone, where do you see this versus routing? Like this comes way earlier.
This comes way earlier in the routing, yeah. I think it can be used. I mean, routing takes care of most of the path stuff, right? I'm not too familiar with routing. I think Glenn, do you want to answer this one?
Sure. So like routing, so this is as a trivial answer. If you want anything other than MVC, if you want to be able to make your URLs look nice and then have things other than routing only comes into effect by the time you get to the like add MVC middleware, right? Everything in the middle before that, in between this rewriting of URLs and MVC, is going to have whatever it was that the request was on, unless you do rewriting, right? As like an example of where this might become useful.
Gotcha.
There's also other things like this thing that he's about to do right now is cool and interesting regardless of that.
Yeah. So what this rule is going to do is no matter what path we get, if the scheme is not HTTPS, it's going to redirect it to be HTTPS. So this is a guarantee that you're going to have HTTPS coming into whatever middleware you have. Oops. So those accounts, I probably.
One of the ways I think about it is that darn, the muting, the echo is really bad. The way I think about it is that routing is kind of like more at the business level, and it's at the responsibility of a controller. This is something that's like wraps around the entire application. It's your first chance to change things.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to describe it. All right, so I'm just going to throw a URL, and what should be happening is we should be getting this be redirected to HTTPS.
Yeah.
And it's going to fail because there's no HTTPS version of my application right now.
Yes. So
that's a guarantee there.
Cool.
And now we're going to go into the last two things, and we're going to talk about some IS and mod rewrite stuff. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm actually going to add this rule also because it's going to be a cool way to chain rules together. But right now I have a file, and it is called, I think I just have a file called URL rewrite.xml. So if I pull it up, it is just the section that you can grab from your web config file that contains your rewrite section. So what we did is we just copied this whole thing in there and pasted it and just made a quick example rule out of it.
So this is the same one that you can use the IIS manager to write. They actually have a UI.
Yes. So what I did here is I made a quick rule that checks. Normally within rules, especially like this original match right here, you only can look at the path string. But in conditions, these conditions are a part of IS that allow you to do like very specific things with them. You can check things like the query string, you can check the host name, you can check a whole bunch of things, anything that's a header within your HTTP request, and compare stuff with that. So what this rule is going to do is it's going to grab anything. It's going to check if the query string is equal to ID is equal to 20, and then it's going to rewrite it to be ID is equal to 10. It's a pretty trivial example, but what it's going to show is that you can chain rules together, and you can chain rules that are from different sources. So I can have an IS rule that I created, and I can have a rule that I made within code, and these are going to seamlessly translate between each other such that rules will like not logically waterfall onto each other. So if I go ahead and build this, let me double check that my startup is wrong startup. That is a different middleware. If I go ahead and do this now, right, and go ahead and do something like app/20, what this is going to do is going to do 2 rewrites. This is going to first rewrite it to have the 20 be part of the query string, and then it's going to rewrite the 20 to be a 10. So what's going to do is going to, oops, if I actually drop the HTTPS, oops, and also I need the ports. It's going to rewrite it to be app with the ID is equal to 10 there. All right.
Cool. Nobody likes 20 anyway.
So
Yeah.
this is really interesting. And when you think about it, do you still, like, you could do the same thing with IIS, you can do the same thing with mod rewrite, but this is all in middleware. So it's really about options, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep. What I want to do with my internship is just provide as many options for anyone to port any of the rewrite roles from different sources. And I think this targeted the largest market for sure.
Yeah, I really like the idea to be able to use Apache mod rewrite rules without having to mess around with it.
Yeah. No one wants to do that. All right. So finally, I have. Oops. Okay, there we go. Finally, I have a mod rewrite file. This is a fairly complex mod rewrite file because mod rewrite itself is very complex. In a short gist, this is grabbing anything that comes after the first slash. This is going to be checking the host and seeing if it is not example.com, or this OR flag is actually something that logically OR certain conditions, or if the port is not equal to 5,000, go ahead and redirect it as something that has example.com with whatever you had as the pass string you captured here. So it's a really complex rule, but really what's going to happen is it's going to do a redirect to example.com with whatever pass string I have here.
So regardless of how you get to the site, you'll always end up at example.com
Yeah.
/ whatever.
Yeah. So right now I'm going to go ahead and, oops, I need to compile and close that and build this again.
Were you two already C# programmers when you started this?
No.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'm just going to type in something. We'll just do hey. And what it's going to do is it's going to redirect it to example.com and have hey as part of the pass string there.
Hey, Glenn, I'm still echoing really badly.
Okay,
Am I
is that
coming
echo
out?
because we're on the microphone here on Glenn's?
The echo
hangout?
happens when 2 microphones are on or when 2 speakers are on.
Okay.
Am I coming out of 2 speakers?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah.
So Crystal, is your speaker on your laptop?
Is not on right now.
Because John is echoing now too. Maybe Glenn, you could turn down the speaker or adjust it. No, that's the gain on the microphone. That's different. The speaker is the big funny looking thing there behind it. Is that coming out of it?
The sound's coming out of the TV at the back of the room.
Has it always been doing that since we started?
Yes. Nothing has changed since we started the call.
Maybe you could make it come out of something that's not so far away from the mic. Because what happens is it mutes the microphone while I'm talking, but the sound is far enough away that it's not catching it in time.
For sure.
Okay. Do you just want to turn the volume down on the TV?
We can do that.
That's a good idea. Because if I whisper, it works.
That's not the TV remote.
Which one's the TV remote?
TV remote will be up there. But your presentation is done though?
Yeah, my
Is that it?
presentation's done.
Here,
Well,
let me
where's the
stop.
code, though? Give us the code.
Yeah. 1 second.
Is the code on ASP.NET?
Yeah, it is. Here, let me get it up right now.
Is the echo gone? People
No,
can get up?
it's not, but that's fine. Whatever.
We turned down the volume fairly significantly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
It's quieter, but it's there. We'll figure it out tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it down significantly even more.
Mm.
So right now it's living in basic middleware. This is pretty much my repo now. And if we go into source, we go into rewrite, this is where everything lives.
Nicely done, Zesty.
Middleware.
Zesty bread. You don't realize how much crap has gone throughout the year.
Zesty bread.
Yeah. I made that like 4 years ago, so
Yeah,
blame my teenage self.
those decisions that you make when you're a teen, they're coming back.
Actually, I've heard people say that we pre-internet baby boomers ruined it for them. We took all the good usernames, right?
That's
now
true.
what are you left with? Zesty bread.
Secret is a
Yeah, I was
good
gonna
user.
say that's a little harsh. I think Zesty bread is a great.
Sorry.
I think it's
Yes.
just a little childish.
Okay, sure.
Hey,
Now
Glenn?
my kids are going to be stuck
Yeah.
with user 13852.
Damien says to try turning the microphone to point at you, Glenn. He's saying that maybe I ruined it by having it pointed the other direction.
I wasn't going to throw you under the bus like that, but since you've said it anyway, Dave Hanselman totally told me to point the microphone that way.
That is just right under the bus. But I want to make sure that we hear the interns.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for me, though. If you guys have any questions, ask on later, I guess, is probably appropriate. From there. So now it's Crystal's turn.
Thank you for being my opening act.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Before you start, I have to throw Glenn under the bus. Glenn?
What?
According to Damien, you have the microphone backwards. The dial is the front.
This way. What?
The dial is the front. Turn it around 180 degrees.
Like that?
There you go.
Okay.
Does that sound better? I don't know. I still hear the echo.
I can't hear anything, so...
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hear from Crystal.
Hello, guys. Let me close out of these. Keep it simple. All right. So what I did was I'm going to turn view components into tag helpers. It's probably easier to show you. So this is pretty much a out-of-the-box web
So I'm hearing you're all having some microphone issues.
Oh, hello, Damien.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. So this, because we went through all this when we first set it up,
Excellent.
this is where the receiver is and the back,
Ah.
and you set up the listening profile here. So if you're doing with a whole bunch of people, you probably want to change it to either that one or omnidirectional.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Stick it in the middle like this,
Indeed.
right? And then see if that makes it any.
Today on the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up.
Damien does audio engineering. Well, I have no idea what I'm doing. So.
Yes.
All right. That's way better.
Testing.
So,
Hello.
so sorry,
it
I
sounds
forgot to
great
say,
when they all
Damien
talk.
can't be at the community stand-up today because he's terribly, terribly busy.
But he can watch it. All right. Let's turn back over to Crystal. All right.
Okay. Sure. So this is basically an out-of-the-box web application. The only difference is, okay, so this is Dan Roth, our program manager, and I made a view component. And basically, don't worry about the stuff, but it takes in a jacket color string and makes a view component of him with the jacket color. So you guys know how to invoke view components. I'll show you how you do that right now. So currently, you would do this, right? Invoke async. The frustrating part about invoking a view component is you have to remember, like, okay, this is the exact syntax for the view component. You want to pass in your parameters, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's a string, and this is jacket color, and you have to remember that casing. So we would do jacket color. You don't get any of the IntelliSense. Let's say red. Cool. So now if we build it, it will, oh, aha.
Holy
Here is
crap.
our view component.
Yeah.
So that's a little frustrating. I also built a...
Well, hang on a second. You just turned Dan into ANSI, and I think that didn't get enough respect.
That was the highlight of my internship.
That's pretty amazing, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, then here's the sample tag helper. Basically, it just replaces the tag with content that says this is a sample tag helper. And you get a lot of nice IntelliSense for this. You start your tag, you do SAM. It's right here. So you can just do that. And if you refresh your page, it'll have your tag helper at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's a tag helper.
yeah.
Awesome.
With the stuff that I added this summer, now you can do this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so you start your tag, and you want a view component. So you type in VC. Oh, it's right here.
Nice.
And if you don't remember making a Dan Roth view component tag helper, so it'll say that it's generated. So you do that, and you notice that it's not green yet because we don't think that's a tag helper. You have to put in your jacket color.
Mhm.
So it tells you that that is a string. Jacket color is, say, what was the last one? Red?
Red, so blue.
Blue.
Mm.
Close the
I think
tag.
it'd look better in mauve, but
Refresh the page.
Nice.
Blue.
So let me show
Okay.
you. Now
Why
it's
are
like
the
build
intern so much better than you, Glenn?
So
I know.
yeah,
Terrible.
let's make one. So let's make
Smarter than me, they're younger than me.
it more
Went to
beautiful.
Princeton.
I'm just saying, this is great. What else do we need them to do? They're only here for another 3 days, right? Well, they could probably...
Yeah.
I figure they could
Anything else?
redo like HTTP client in that time. Something like that,
So we're just going to make a new view component. It's basically the way that you would make one. So public view component results, invoke. Let's take in string models and int bottles. Cool. We should probably make an actual model for this, but I want to show you guys something cool later, so let's just make a result. It's a dictionary string object, and it takes in models is models, and bottles is bottles. Ah, this is bad. Okay, whatever. And then we want to return.
You need the frame. Yeah, there you go.
No, that's not it. Okay.
I saw you type this twice. Just
I know. Okay, so return. So we want to return a view with swag, which is what we're going to make, and results. So now let's try
now
to
fix your dictionary syntax.
Right.
Whenever this happens, I get really overwhelmed, and I just start adding commas and stuff randomly.
I know.
Is it new dictionary?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
You saved the day. So now let's actually make the swag view. So we want to add a new folder, swag, add a new item. This is swag.chtml. Okay. So this takes in a model that is a dictionary string object.
And they weren't C# programmers when they started. What did you all program in, Java?
I didn't code at all.
No, you're lying.
Oh, come on.
I primarily Java, C++, C.
So other curly brace languages.
Yeah.
Are
We
from.
have a few guys that work on the team who didn't start in C# at all until they really started here.
Yeah. Crystal, were you curly brace languages too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is going to be our view. If you go back to the main page and you type in VC, it's not going to show up because we haven't built the project after we wrote the swag view component. So now let's build. And then after you build and you type in VC, okay, that's done. Swag is here. So
Did you have to make any Visual Studio plugin, or you just had to make sure that these tag helpers and how are you populating that? How does the system know? It just sees it?
okay, so this is baked into MVC now, so you don't, well, I'm working on integrating it. Oh no, so you don't have to add anything. Basically what this does is it uses a view component provider to find the view components, and then reflection to get the parameters of the invoke method.
So that means that you don't have to do any, like are you doing any code generation or making sure a DLL is somewhere, or is it just...
There's a lot of code generation. And then in Razor tooling, we make tag helper descriptors, and we plug them into Razor when you build, both at runtime and design time, so you get this IntelliSense. But the classes are generated on the fly when you make your CSHTML page into a C# file.
This is really cool.
Thank you. So if you type in swag, hopefully I can get through this before the battery dies. Bottles, if you forgot what type it is, you can hover over. Oh, it's an integer, and it's also generated, right? So you can say you have 5 bottles and models. So is Canada. Okay, so you make this, and if you refresh it, your view component should populate. So let's see. Hey, here it is.
Our models are from Canada, and we have 5 bottles.
Yes.
Yep.
If
So
you
that's
wanted
great.
to change something to your view component, like say let's make the bottles. This is why I didn't want to make it a model. I shouldn't have used the parameter models.
Change
Okay.
it.
So you have string bottles, right?
Going off script never hurt anybody, has it, Scott?
Of
Yeah,
course,
no.
never.
Dinosaur. I don't even know what. Are we talking about models like model view controller? I don't know what models we're talking about.
We're talking about the models that you would associate with bottles.
Models
Just
of what? I drink soda pop. I don't understand the context.
Okay, so let's just work with bottles. You know, we changed our bottles to a string. Right now, if you hover over, it says that this is an int. But if you build again, it will notice that it's a string now. And so after you build, it will say, hold on. string. And then you can change it to like glass.
How did it know that is there a test that just ran?
No, it just discovered tests. But this is just like you go to Visual Studio, you make new web application. There aren't any tests. So, yeah. And this is hopefully going to be in 1.1. I have 3 days left, so I'm throwing my changes into MVC, Razor, and Razor tooling right now.
And this is all in now, right? So
Yeah.
they can go to like GitHub and look at stuff?
Yeah, everything's on my personal GitHub. I'm still working on merging them in. If you would like to comment on this issue or like you have any feedback, this is the issue, 1051 on MVC. So, there has been some feedback, and we've been trying to bake this in. Oh,
That guy
that's
said he's going to give you $100 for this feature? Pretty sure that's what he said, right?
Hey!
What the heck?
Right.
They're just preloaded.
But anyway, that's View Component Tag Helpers coming soon.
Very cool. Other than Hansman being confused about using models and models in this context and not having anything to do with a model or an
Someone
MVC.
is going to have to explain it to me after because I'm still very confused. But it's okay. So this means that we have Apache rewrites, we have IIS rewrites, we have View Component Tag Helpers.
Yep. There's also just general straight-up regex rewrites. Just
Yep.
throw a .NET regex in there, and away you go.
And this is and this is really useful because sometimes people they think about interns and they think that they get like boring work or grunt work. You're shipping this. This stuff's shipping with 1.1. You just said.
Absolutely.
This is.
Yeah,
This is big stuff.
We make sure that the interns all work on something that we would at least be capable. We would be okay with shipping were they to finish their project, right? That's always.
So I've actually been pointing to your work over the summer when I'll talk about like, hey, this is open source, this is live, and I'll click into your repos and I'll show like, here's middleware, this is live code we're writing. So I mean, this is really cool, and I think this shows we need more interns.
You think
We
so?
do. We do. There's not enough interns.
So the point of like the beginning of Justin's talk was like he came here and we said, hey, we want some of this URL rewrite stuff. We want you to go do some research, come back to us and talk to us about it, and we'll tell you what we'll give you the ideas as you go. And he spent a whole bunch of time learning all about URL rewriting and what those things mean. And Crystal was like, hey, we've got the MVC guys are like, hey, we have an idea for a feature we want you to work on, and so she had to learn all about MVC and work out how all this stuff worked and things like that, right?
Yeah. For example, like I was like playing around with routing, tried to do routing syntax for a lot of the URL rewriting, and I realized it was just like it didn't give you enough power, and so really I just had to go back to regex, which is
Have either of you done web development before, or just console apps?
I'm not much a web dev, so that's why I'm on the I'm not on MVC and GS. So.
Yeah.
I've done some web development, not with ASP.NET, which was a terrible mistake.
Well,
What did you use?
what did you use? Yeah.
I used some Django, Rails.
Cool.
Django and Rails. Do you, not to put you on the spot, but this is an honest question, why doesn't ASP.NET, do you think, get used as much in colleges and universities and stuff? And do you think that being open source and core and running on Linux, et cetera, is going to make people pay attention?
Yeah, actually, the main.
This is an honest question, by the way. Your internship's over, so you can be honest.
Absolutely.
I didn't code on Windows before I came here. It was all Linux. So that's why I never really thought about using it. But
A whole argument that Hansman has been making was just justified in that one sentence.
Yeah, because I always talk about how, I've talked about the young people, so this is you two. I had this theory that people sit down with Linux or Mac or whatever, and they go apt-get install foo, where foo is everything but .NET.
Yeah.
And now if you could do that you have to get to that first level before you're going to even think about it. And now with Visual Studio Code and this kind of stuff, in 12 weeks you've just put together production code that we're going to ship now. So it shows that you don't need to...
oh my god, I'm so spoiled now with IntelliSense and everything. I don't know if I can go back to just Vim.
Yeah.
But did you end up with VS? Did you end up with VS Vim?
Yeah,
So you're using VS Vim.
big fan of Visual Studio.
You should meet Jared Parsons, who wrote VS Vim, before you leave, because that was
Yeah.
his own thing on the side, and then became like super famous. This is great. and show us next week because we want more of this. Everyone on the chat room is like, hire them now.
Yeah, and I just want to point out this
Yeah.
is
Really?
another cool thing.
Oh, thank you guys.
We've got people all over the world. I mean, you've got
And
people
Michael,
in Argentina,
regex
Tunisia.
don't get more and more beautiful, okay?
Cool. Well, this is great. Thank you so much, Crystal Jen and Justin Kotalik, for all of your time today, and we're very happy that you had a great internship at Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We didn't say that.
Oh.
We did. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Ouch! Shots fired. You're brutal.
Yeah.
All right.
I expected that sort of stuff from Justin after working on the runtime team for so long.
Oh yeah, I know.
I thought Krista was so much nicer.
No, this
Yeah.
has been an amazing internship.
Very cool. So would you do me a favor, Glenn, and would you let one of the interns do the very exciting dramatic zoom out? It's an important
Which one of
part.
you? We'll get to do the dramatic zoom out. This is a big responsibility. It's the most looked forward to part.
Yeah, Rochambeau for it.
Scissors. Whew.
Oh. Okay, engage dramatic zoom out.
Do I zoom out? Okay.
Yeah, zoom out as we all wave. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
It doesn't zoom out.
Zooming
It's not
out.
working.
Okay.
That's not very dramatic.
That's a really horrible zoom out.
Press-
It's a
never
remote.
pressing
You have to point it at the
Battery.
thing.
Oh yeah, you have to point
So
it.
bad.
Okay.
Point it at that.
There we go.
Dramatic.
Bye.
Bye.